Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to FX Maniac. Again, this is Syed Mahmoud Amiri and welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, it's actually my first ever Cinema 4D tutorial. So I'm just going to be showing you guys how to create this awesome, I'm not sure if it's awesome or not, but I'm just going to be showing you guys how to create this result inside of Cinema 4D. So I'm going to come here in the Cinema 4D scene. And I'm going to basically show you guys how to create this extrusion, set up some lighting, kind of a studio lighting setup. And this is actually a request from a friend of mine in the last tutorial, which if I click here, he's actually said that is it possible to do in Cinema 4D too. So I'm just going to do that. HuneX, his name is Luho, he's one of my best friends, my buddies. So let's get started with this tutorial. I'm going to be showing you guys how to create this result inside of Cinema 4D. So I'm going to take a new scene, and I will mention that again, this is a tutorial for beginners. So yeah, click on a new scene, and I have a logo inside Photoshop, which I have here. Basically, the image was basically like this. So what I did was I just selected all the parts, hold down shift with the magic wand tool, and then I'm going to right click using the selection tool or whatever selection tool you want. So just right click and make work path. For the tolerance I use 0.8. like the lower you go the more accurate it's gonna be, but don't go too low, it's gonna you know, sometimes it's gonna mess up. So I found that 0.8 is the right value for this. So here is the path that are created around the shape of the logo. And then I'm going to go into File, Export Path to Illustrator, and just save it somewhere. And then you're going to come back to Cinema 4D and go into File and Merge. And for your wherever that you save that file, you're just going to bring the Illustrator file. So open it, make sure scale is 1, and hit OK. So now we've got this object, but two things we need to do here. First things, I'm going to hit R to rotate it, negative 90 or positive 90, it doesn't matter. And then I'm going to say, actually, basically, like it came into different shapes, like separate shapes. So the first thing that I need to do is combine them together. And first things I need to delete this point, which I can do last too, but yeah. I'm just going to select all of them, hold down shift, and then going to mesh, conversion, connect objects. So it's going to connect this object. So here we have one single object, and then I'm going to select all of these and I'm going to delete them. And then take this out of the hierarchy and delete this. So now we have a single object as our logo. Hit S to frame it, and basically I'm like hoping that you know this navigation around this 3D software, which is pretty simple. You hold down Alt and left mouse click to rotate or orbit, Alt middle mouse click to pan, and just the wheel of the mouse to zoom in and zoom out. So I'm going to hit S to frame this object, and then I'll add a extrude object, and then I'm going to put this here under the extrude so we get some extrusion. So then I'm going to go into the objects. For the movement on the Z, I'm going to make it like 60, sorry, not the Z in this case. In this case we need it on the X. So for 60 and maybe a little bit more, 200. Yeah, that's about it. And then if I hit NB, or just going to display ground shading plus lines, you can see the lines here. I'm just going to add some subdivisions to make it a bit more smoother. Then I'm going to the caps and turn on fillet cap. And then you can just increase it like how much you want. And just not fillet cap, just some fillet, you know. So let's see here. You can see it's there, but if I hit NA again, you can see it's on the back side actually. So I'm just going to hit this none, and for the end I'm going to go fillet cap. So yeah. Now if I hit NB again, you can increase the radius to give it more of a bevel and give it some steps to go to give some segments. So basically this is what I want. Maybe it's a little too much, so I'm just gonna decrease this. That's about it. So then if you want to move the pivot point, you just want to click here on the enable axis modification and then just move it to the center of the object, maybe from the x-axis too, and then go back to your object and then rotate it to like -90 degree, and that's it. So let's create a floor now. We've created our logo. I'm just going to double click and logo. I'm going to create a plane, and the thing about this is I'm going to hit T and scale it up. The thing about it, I want to make it a seamless background. So the thing you can do is if I hit NB, you can see that we have a lot of edges, a lot of segments on this object, which I don't want. I'm just going to make it like 1 by 1 for now. And then in order to make this object editable, I'm just going to select it and hit C. Then I'm going to hit edge and select this edge and hit the move tool, E, right click, extrude. I'm just going to extrude it and then move it up and then extrude it and then move it up. You can see that the axis is kind of going off, so I'm just going to click on this world axis and then move it up. And before making it smooth, I just need to add some support edges, because if I add a subdivision surface and I drag it to the bottom, you can see that it's losing its shape. So I'm just going to turn this off, and then I am going to right click, loop path cut, and add one here, add one to the left side of it, and one to the right side of it, and one here. So if I click here, now if I turn this on, you can see that it is actually holding the shape. So I'm going to hit E to move, and then I can make it even smoother, set it to 3, and then just select it and scale it with T so that it makes a seamless, very large seamless background. And then I'm just going to select our object and then move it down so that it is sitting actually on the ground, not so much, but just this much. And this is basically our setup. So now I'm going to go and create some materials for this and for the ground. So let's see here. I'm just going to double click here and create a gray material for the ground. Just drag it in there and click on the material here. Double click actually. Make it dark so it's not that shiny. It's not that white because it's going to reflect the light. So the darker it is, the more, you know, even though we're going to give it at the end, give it a texture, but for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. All right, so we've created the material for the ground. I'm just going to add a texture for this, so it's going to make it look, actually, if I go to Photoshop, this checkerboard pattern. So I am going to Cinema 4D and click on the texture, go into surfaces, and then go checkerboard. So now as you can see, it's pretty big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it like, what, 60 by 30, which is a little too much. I would say maybe 30 by 15, or I'm just going to make it like 15 by 30, just like this, or even 20 by 40. Yeah. And then make the colors a bit like off-white, this white color. And then for the black color, I'm just going to make it a bit gray. So it's not like as the usual checkerboard that you see. That's what I'm looking for. So that's it. And then for the logo itself, this is going to be our floor, our what is it? Seamless floor. I'm going to double click again. Why did I add a thing to this? Reflectance. I don't want reflectance. Okay. So for this one, the color should be like orangish or whatever color you want. In this case, on orangish. And in this case, I do want it to have reflection. I'm actually going to add a Beckman and then decrease the reflection strength and give it some roughness to make it a bit rough, the reflection, and then just increase the specular a little bit. Just going to drop it here. So right now, if I render this out, you can see that it's not that bad, but we don't have any lights, we don't have any other things set up. So what I'm going to do is I am going to add a light. So go here, click a light, move it up, and I'm going to change this to an area light, which is kind of a better light, I would say. Just like you know, the cool thing about it is that the bigger it is, the more soft the shadow is going to be. So the smaller it is, the harder the shadows. If I just render this out, where is this? So just position it here. If I just render this out, you can see that the shadow is there. Just going to move this here to this side and scale it up and rotate it so it's facing this way. Yeah, so if I render this out now, you can see that it's there, but it doesn't have any shadows. So if I go in here and enable the shadow map and then render this out, you can see that the shadows are there. But the thing is, if I make this small, it's going to make the shadow much more harder. Yeah, and if I make this big, it's going to make the shadow much more softer. So that's the cool thing about area lights. All right, so that's about it. And then I'm going to just move it a little bit to the side and Control D and move it to this side and then rotate it to kind of compensate for this like dark shadow, even though we're going to be using ambient occlusion and global illumination at the end. But yeah, we actually haven't duplicated it. So and this is the thing I always miss. So like in Maya, if you do Control D, it's going to duplicate the object, but here apparently you have to Control C, Control V, and then just move it. So kind of getting used to this. So I'm going to select this light and turn off shadows and decrease the intensity a little bit, and even for this one. So just decrease the intensity. Now if I render this out, see how it looks. It's looking better. And sorry, so the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make the reflection a bit more rough. So going to reflectance, roughness, and then I am going to add a sky, and I'm actually going to use an HDRI for this. So if you don't know what an HDRI is, it's basically high dynamic range images, which you use for lighting in 3D softwares and render engines. So in Cinema 4D or any software, you can use them. So if you don't know where to get one, or if you don't have HDRIs, there's a great website called HDRI Haven or Heaven, whatever it is. They have actually some really high quality, great HDRI images of different places, different timings, and even they have, I believe, till 18K, 24K HDRI images. So that's insane amount of detail that you can use. You can download them. Any version is free. You can support them and stuff. So in this case, I'm just going to be using some HDRIs from Video Copilot's backlight. So I'm just going to double click on this, go into the color, turn off reflectance, click load image, and I have the backlight 8K, which I can use the JPEGs and the HDR version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select which one basically, 44. So I'm going to go back to the backlight 8K or 4K, 44, which is this. I don't want to load it. I'm just going to throw this onto the sky. So basically that's our environment right now. So you can see that it's there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to render this out again and see how it looks. So it is looking pretty cool, but the thing is we haven't set, in order to make this more high quality, I need to add two things. I need to add global illumination, which you can increase the samples, which is medium right now. You can choose high or whatever, you know, to your computer settings. And I'm going to, in this case I don't need it, but you can add ambient occlusion, which is like a contact shadow. So now if I render this out, you can see that the light, what it does is it's just going to make the light sort of bounce off and then reflect from the surfaces and make the scene a bit more better and a bit more high quality. So that's what ambient, what global illumination or GI is. So in this case, it's actually okay for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the render settings and going to the output and take a full HD 1920 by 1080 frame, resolution 300, and I am going to take a render of this. So maybe I'll just decrease the color a little bit, and then I am going to render. So it's going to render, so I'll just let this render out, and we'll be back when this is done. So this is the render frame that is done. I think the reflection is still a little bit too strong, which I can go ahead and double click, and I can go into the reflection and decrease the reflection strength and take another render and see how it looks. So here's a render. I would say it's looking fine, especially for a beginner's tutorial. You can do a lot of other stuff. You can create multiple lights. You can use different HDR images and see what works for you. So that is basically it for the tutorial for Cinema 4D. I know it was the first one, but I do hope you like it. And if you do, make sure to support me in my channel, FX Maniac. If I go back here, or if I just click here, FX Maniac, you know, you can go ahead and subscribe to my channel. You can go ahead and like the videos, comment whatever questions you might be having. So just make sure to write them in the comment section and tell me what you want next. As this tutorial was a request from the comments, you can tell me what you want next, so that I'll be doing them in the next tutorial. So as always, I hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something from it, and until next time, enjoy working.